Corey, do you believe in meeting the right person in the wrong time? So, example, meeting a right girl, but not ready.
So I believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And my personal experience is that there are people that you are destined to meet. There are women that you're destined to meet and have a relationship with if you're a guy. And there are dudes that you're destined to have as some of your best and closest friends. Maybe they're business partners or whatever. And those kind of people, when they come into your life, it feels easy, it feels effortless. You feel invigorated being around them. And especially like when it comes to a woman, you feel it on the inside of your core. You feel warmed up. You never run out of things to talk about because you're fascinated by her. And not only are you fascinated by her, but you can feel and you can see that she's fascinated by you. Talking to her is easy and effortless. You have similar goals, similar values. You may even have similar experiences. You might like the same bands, you might drive the same car, you may like the same type of places to go for vacation, you might like the same drink, or might like the same do the same things for fun, whatever it happens to be. So you just kind of feel different about that person. Just like I always say that how often do you meet a new best friend? It's like good people that are good to you, good for your soul, must never come along. When it comes to lovers, I found personally you get depending on your life path and when you're in and out of relationships, you'll typically get 1 to 3 of those really strong connections a decade. That's it. You may get one at the beginning of the decade, date for a few years, and you're single for a year or two. Then you meet somebody kind of in the middle. Then you're together for several years. Then you may split up, have a few years where you're kind of single and just dating. And then boom, you meet somebody at the tail end of it. And you may just have one like right in the middle of that decade. And that's the only one that you get that you really click with for 10 years. That's why those hurt so bad when they go sideways and you don't get together with them. And I've also found that there are, just like, the other story I was talking about, and I wrote about in 3% Man, when I was out on a date with a girl and I ran into the boss and her husband of another girl I was seeing, but things weren't really progressing that well. Well, this particular girl had come back into my life, I think 2, 3 years after I had seen her. We'd gone out a couple times and I said something and fucked it up basically and pissed her off. And just because I made all these assumptions, assuming that she didn't like me, and I wrote her this email pissed off at her, and it just turns out that she was out of town in New Orleans with her friends at Mardi Gras. And I was like, and she sent me an email back, and I was thinking, oh, fucking idiot. I totally ruined it. But then I ran into her. I was downtown with a friend of mine, and we talked for a bit, and I was like, hey, have a good night. And I just kind of went about my business, and she was just standing in the street with like I can't believe he walked away from me because she knew I was totally in love with her at one point, and I just treated her like any other chick on the street. And then, sure enough, a few days later, she sent me an email, and that's how we started seeing each other again. But she came back into my life and helped me with another girl who that was love at first sight, and that's one of the reasons why that particular girl is still into my life. In my life even till today, we still see each other every once in a while, and probably will off and on for the rest of my life because the bond is so, in the history we have, is so strong. And when you have, they say that when somebody's in your life for 7 years, that they'll always be in your life. And I think most people have kind of experienced that. They'll meet somebody and there'll be a connection there, but they're unavailable. Maybe they're in a relationship. And you're like, oh, well, she's got a boyfriend. Man, I'd love to meet a girl like that. And then 2 years later, you run into her again, or 6 months later, you run into her and she's single and ready to mingle. And that's just, you just never know. That's the way life tends to work out. And so it's absolutely possible, and it definitely does happen. It has happened. I've written about that in my book as well. And those things are magical because it feels like the creator made those events happen, because the way it makes you feel when you're around that person is so different than the normal people that you meet and interact with.
Yeah, I haven't got that yet myself personally. All
Still
right.
young. So that the first time that happened to me that I can remember and it was mutual, it was probably 90, 94, I think. Well, I was 24 years old first time that happened to me. So and it was like, wow, this girl, we went to the same high school together, and it was like a strong animalistic attraction. I was actually with Mike's brother, Sean.
Really?
We were hanging out one night, and we were drinking and having a good time. Sean and I were laughing our asses off, and he knew this girl. I had just kind of seen her. She was a year behind us, and I just thought, hey, she's a cute girl. But seeing her like 4 or 5 years later, when I think she was 23 at the time, I was 24, and it was just the way she looked at me. She was eye fucking me, and it was like, wow. I was like, and we just started talking, and it was effortless. It was an effortless interaction, and I was so buzzed. And I remember waking up the next day, and I was like, oh fuck, I didn't even get her number. I don't even. It's like because we were partying so much. It's like I don't even remember at what point in the evening we left. And then I woke up the next day. I was like, man, I know that girl liked me. I was certain of that. I could feel that. But she had told me where she worked. And so I called her where she worked. I think it was like on a Sunday because I knew she worked there on Sundays. And I called her and she answered. She was like, hey, let me get your number and I'll call you back. And then she didn't call me back that day. I was thinking, fuck. It's like I fucked it up again or whatever. And then like on that Monday night, she called me and we ended up talking for like 3 or 4 hours. It was just effortless. And then the next time something like that was in '94. And so after that, I ended up getting married. And then I met this other girl in '97, but it wasn't two-way. It wasn't love at first sight. It was really just me. It was really super into her. But my interest in her, and she was attracted enough to me that she became more interested over time. But the next time I had a love at first sight experience wasn't until I was 31. So that's 7 years in between those two. And then from the time I was 31 till it happened again, it was like happened again when I was, just before I turned 35. So you're like 4 or 5 years. So, but like I said, 1 to 3 a decade, depending on your life path. And I wrote about some of these girls in my book, but because you're young and it's like, it'll happen. And when it happens, you feel it in your
Yeah.
soul. And it's like you're certain that there's a connection, and everybody that's watching the two of you interact can see it. They can feel it. It's beautiful when it happens. But most people, most guys, when that does happen, they fuck it up. And then within a matter of weeks, they turn the girl off and they never forget about her. And most people settle after that because they hardly ever come along. And then when they do come along, you're in a relationship. And like, because that happened with me. I met somebody that I was really into, and it made me think, "Oh, I just never felt that way about my wife. It was like, I got to know what that's like to be in a relationship with somebody that stirs my soul and lights me up on the inside. Because at that time, I hadn't experienced it yet. I still believe in the soulmate myth. You'll find the one perfect person. I believe there are a lot of people that we can have great relationships with, and they're just part of your life path.